I'm Saundra Kelley, and I am reading from On the Drop Side of Yonder by Jacqueline Brunais. It's a collection of stories about small town America in the 1930s and 40s. 14 chapters in all. Don't miss a single one. Listen to them all. The one we're going to read now is the title, On the Drop Side of Yonder. And it's all about the sayings that Jacqueline heard as she was growing up. In his last years, my dad rambled a lot about events that occurred during his life. I was puzzled about an expression he used several times and wondered about it. I didn't know him from Adam's off ox, he would say. And one day I stopped him to ask, Dad, I know what you mean when you say I didn't know him from Adam's off ox. But what is an off ox? It's the opposite of the nigh ox, he replied. There's a nigh ox and an off ox, I said. Yes, when you hitch up a team of oxen, the tongue of the wagon is between the two. The driver stands on one side of the tongue. The ox that's on the side is the nigh ox, and the one that's on the far side of the tongue is the off ox. All my life I've enjoyed folksy and pithy words and sayings such as that. They add spice to the language, and growing up in the country, I heard a number of them. Most of us are put off by the dull, contemporary expressions that seem to have settled down into the vocabulary. Overused expressions like, it's cool, it's hot, it sucks. It could be that I am on the drop side of yonder now, and clever words and phrases are being coined, but I've not heard them. And the past, even small regional differences caused people to express themselves in quaint terms. We had Toledo relatives who visited us, or we visited them, 2 or 3 times a year. My dad's business was fixing cars and farm machinery, and he usually referred to cars as automobiles. But Uncle Hilbert and Aunt Gladys, they referred to them as machines. To us, a machine was a sewing machine. It amused us when Aunt Gladys said that she'd been busy carrying Patsy around in the machine. My mother and Dad had farm friends named Charlie and Gertie. Well, they were intelligent enough, but they lacked polish. Gertie was a good cook, which in those times meant that she always used plenty of sugar, butter, and cream. My parents and Sister Joyce were having supper with Charlie and Gertie. When their Gertie brought out the dessert, my mother asked what it was, and Gertie responded, "It's just plain old apple grunt." As a result, no amount of explanation could persuade my younger sister Joyce to take dessert in that evening. Here are some of the old sayings I grew up with that I learned later. Some meanings are obscure. Some are right to the point. Looks like she was called for and couldn't come. I bet she thinks she set her ass in a butter bowl. That remark was made about a woman who married above herself. The cat might have kittens in the oven, but that don't make 'em biscuits. Looks like he died on the vine. Looks like death chewing a cracker. Looks like death warmed over. Colder than a mother-in-law's kiss. If you were born to hang, you'll never drown. This is an old family saying, and said to have been uttered by my great-grandmother when the children were swimming. She went high-assing around town, and there set the beans. And that meant that her canning needed to be done, but she had other things on her mind. They're acting like a couple of sick cats. That's my dad's unromantic description of an older couple who fell in love. And of course, I was on the drop side of yonder. My mother had a saying she used when I asked where she was when an incident happened. Instead of saying it occurred before I was born, she said, "You were in France dancing on the tea kettle." I remember feeling insulted by that. Another one she used when I pouted, "If you keep sticking your lower lip out, a little birdie may come along and drop something on it." I hated that one. When I was about 12 years old, I heard Uncle Claude use this one. I thought it was terribly clever. His wife was nagging him about something, and he said, "Now, Nina, don't get your tail in a knot." Unfortunately, my mother did not share my appreciation of a well-turned phrase. When I used it on her, I received a resounding slap across the face. I think it was the last physical punishment I ever received from her, but I remember it well. I know English and all the other languages fluctuate, and old words and sayings are discarded, new ones are added. So I may be wrong to regret that some of the old ones are lost, and the ones that take their place are not terribly clever. But at least I have jotted some of the old ones down, and can get a chuckle out of them now and then. That's the Drop Side of Yonder that you've been listening to. There are 13 more. I hope you'll stay tuned in.